Hi, welcome to NDE TV. I'm Peggy Robinson. Today's guest is Melissa Bowyers, and she works at Off the Left Eye, a YouTube channel. It's the Swedenborg Foundation. Am I saying this right? Am I saying
Yeah.
it backwards? And you're the lady that gives all the answers when somebody has questions. Is that correct?
Yeah, I have done that. I'm not doing that much anymore. I'm also a writer, um, for just kind of wherever they need me.
Oh,
But yeah,
okay. We really had some good discussions before we started here. So, can we go back just a little bit? And I was saying this really interests me because the idea of that Swedenborg, I guess, is talking about that maybe spirits are talking to us on our normal days or coming through in dreams. And it really fascinated me because during my 5-year-old drowning as a ghost kid, I I was walking down the highway and these two boys are they are walking down the highway and I'm flying around as this ghost looking for kids to play with, and I tried talking to this one boy and he started answering me telepathically. And so it makes me wonder, now as I'm older and look back, I just wonder how much people are coming in and talking to us during our daily lives, and we don't even realize it.
hmm yeah. I actually think it's constant. I mean, constant. It's one of the things. So, we on our channel we talk about Emanuel Swedenborg, who is this 18th century Swedish scientist who became sort of a mystic and theologian. So he had all these like almost 30 years of spiritual experiences and wrote about them and wrote a lot about the inner meaning of the Bible, just for some background. But one of the things he learned in his spiritual experiences is that we are in a constant equilibrium with the spiritual world, with positive and negative forces, what he called heaven and hell. So we actually constantly have this sort of stream, like the angel and the devil on your shoulder, I think is a great way to think about it. We really do have that sense of like being pulled in both directions, and we're kind of the force in the middle. So there's influences all the time. Actually, I have a passage I can read.
Sure.
It's Swedenborg is like not the easiest reading. Oh, but this reminds me, Peggy, of your experience. So this is from he has a book called Heaven and Hell. Wait, is that right? From Heaven and Hell. Yeah, this one's from Heaven and Hell,
Is
numbers
that his most
248.
popular book?
Yes, it is. Yeah. Um, when angels and spirits talk with us, it sounds just as audible as when we talk with each other, but it is not audible to people who are nearby, only to ourselves. This is because the speech of an angel or spirit flows first into our thought, and then by an inner route into our organ of hearing, so that it activates from within. Talking with spirits is rarely allowed nowadays, though, because it is dangerous. The spirits then actually know that they are with us, which otherwise they would not. And evil spirits, by nature, harbor a murderous hatred for us and crave nothing less than our total destruction, body and soul. This is what actually goes on in people who regularly lose themselves in fantasies, even to the point that they lose touch with the pleasures appropriate to their natural person. There are some people who lead solitary lives who sometimes hear spirits talking with them without risk. So that's sort of a
Makes me think
commentary, but
about drug and alcohol addiction.
yeah.
I
So
believe
when he
just take.
uses the word like fantasies, um, I think that's sort of an 18th century version of hallucinations or visions, that's sort of seeing something that's not grounded in physical reality. Um, yeah. So addiction is a great way to lose yourself.
Yeah, sex
And,
addiction, gambling, and I think of all these
mhm,
things that people just are consumed by and can't break free.
right. And even small addictions like cravings, um, like I deal a lot with like food obsession.
Me too.
And yeah, and some disordered eating. And that for me is like, sort of this for a long time, it'd be like I'd be thinking about my next meal or the next thing I was going to eat like all day, whether I was going to eat it or not going to eat it. And it just this obsessive kind of thought just sort of irritating you all day about like eat the chocolate, don't eat the chocolate. If you're going to eat that chocolate, you're going to be terrible, and no, you're a loser. But also you might as well just eat it because if you don't eat it, you're going to be thinking about it all day. And like, you know what? Just give in, just live a little, have some fun, eat the chocolate. Like it's constant. You're like,
Yeah.
ah, shut up.
Yeah, I wanted
I don't want to think
McDonald's at
about the
8 o'clock
chocolate.
last night. You know?
Exactly. There's another one that I have here that I think is even better for like, sorry. Here we go. Um, this idea that you're between the world. So the angelic spirits that Swedenborg talks about, they flow in. I can't find where I saved it, but they flow in more as a feeling or an emotion. So the higher level, like loving spirits, they will never influence you. They will always leave you in freedom, and they'll back off if they feel like you're not in freedom, and their influence is sort of just gentle reminders or a sense of well-being or peace. So I know, like, when there's anxiety, you already have that presence of negative spirits, and the good spirits will never create anxiety in you. And it's sometimes the way to tell, I think, who's sort of in there is, well, how do I feel right now? Do I feel calm and safe and peaceful, or do I feel anxious?
Yeah.
Because there's a difference. Like, I think sometimes you can have an experience where a good spirit might help you with something. Like, there are stories of people, getting a sixth sense, like a feeling of danger, for example, where you've suddenly, you shouldn't be where you are, or something's going to happen, and you have this sense of like, run, right? Or get out of here. And that's sort of influential, but it's very clear. There's no fear. There's no like creeping sensation of like, ooh, this is scary. Like, they're not trying to make you anxious. They're just telling you simple direction. You should get out of here. You should not be here. Whereas if it's, like, I went on a walk this morning early and it was still really dark, and I am 36, but I'm afraid of the dark. And so I have like this constant feeling of like, oh, should I walk here? This part is extra dark. This is kind of creepy, and you start getting boogeyman feelings. I think that is more like the evil spirit side that's sort of just making you constantly afraid. But if you stop and you sit with it, you don't have a sense in your heart that you should
Really?
be
Because I
afraid.
don't
It's
think
more
you
your
should
mind.
walk in the dark.
I have two big dogs. I
Okay.
was not alone. And it was like 6 a.m. So it wasn't pitch black out. Yeah, it's not my favorite time to walk. But I do think that there's somebody out there that's gonna, if there's really a danger, like there were a couple paths that I was like, I have a strong feeling I shouldn't go that way. And I didn't, and I just really followed my instincts. I think that's sort of the good spirits being like, no, just don't do that.
Can't you
And
get
you have
treadmill? I'm
that's
scared
not a
for
bad
you
idea.
now.
No, don't worry. It's a
I
very
think
safe
of all the women
neighborhood.
that's been abducted and
Yeah.
doing the exact
Yeah.
same thing, hiking.
It's true. Yeah. Well, I was on lit sidewalks, and don't
Okay,
worry, I'm fine.
don't worry.
um,
Don't get a treadmill. It's the
okay.
mom in me. It
Yeah,
doesn't
I
turn
hear
off.
you.
It's everywhere. But what you're saying
Yeah.
though, I've had a few in my life where this, and I know, think back later, this was a good spirit, like the main spirit, just yell at me. Like I was getting ready to break up with this one guy. We just kind of casually dated, and I just didn't like him, and I was just thinking about how am I going to break up with him. I was almost to his house, and all of a sudden, this spirit flew right. It seemed like it was a faint bluish, right in through my face, and I leaned back like you would if a bird just hit your windshield. How you're like, you unexpected,
Mhm.
and it just like come right through in my face and was yelled, "There's a guy down that road. He has two girls and he needs you." And I thought, I'm going insane. If that happens again, I'm going to call, make an appointment. I have just lost my mind. Of course, I didn't say anything to him about it, and I just dismissed it. And it was about 2 months later. Of course, I broke up with that guy, and then I thought about taking my ex-husband back because it was Christmas Day and my kids, and then and so involved with that for a couple of weeks. Like, no, I can't do this. He's an alcoholic, and I'm not going through this. And so one night, I decided to, because I was hearing his voice. Well, actually, I went to the mirror and I asked. I said, "God, you're my father. Arrange my marriage." And because I had heard a voice like a year prior, and when I was praying really hard and crying, my husband asked for divorce. I didn't mean to go through all this, but and in the middle of that, I heard my child. I'm like, whoa! I mean, this voice was
Mhm.
audible. It wasn't in here like normally, or that one even normal. It was very rare, but still, it was my child. And so in this moment, this night, I said, okay, this is where I had heard this voice, my child. So I'm going to where I heard God's voice. I looked in the mirror and I said, God, you're my father. Arrange my marriage. I don't think I can pick him. I think I'm really bad at picking. So, if you're truly my father, then I'm your daughter. So arrange my marriage. And I heard, and not even a voice, but this knowing, like, follow God like a leaf follows the wind. Like, all my job was to trust. And I thought, I'm going to trust my instincts all night long tonight and see what happens. End of the story, end of the night. I went into this bar. You wouldn't think God leads you to a bar, right? But I mean, he didn't drink, and he was sitting there drinking coffee, talking to people. And just where I walked in the bar, and I was with my mom and this guy she met that night, and I thought, oh, this is stupid. I'm out here, falling leaf, like, like, and this intuition, and like, just give up. Oh, this is stupid. You don't go into a bar and find your future husband. And a voice said, don't look left, don't look right. He's straight ahead. I opened up the door and I seen the guy straight ahead. I went and sat down. And about a month later, because we started dating, and he got my number and stuff. And so about a month later, he wanted me to meet his two daughters. And so I'm driving. I've got the directions here, wrote down, and I had to pull over at that intersection where I heard that there's that road, and here's this guy, his two daughters, and needs me. And that voice that I heard that day, like 2 months prior, it come
Mhm.
crashing like, what? How does this happen? This can't be real, but by golly, it is.
Mhm. I love that story. I think that's I think there are so many stories out there, and I feel like we're sort of conditioned, to not believe that or to not listen, but I really think that we all have that um that sense of intuition kind of leading us around and into things. And
We'll be
uh
married 25 years this year.
wow,
I'm a
congratulations.
soulmate, yeah.
I love that you said, God arranged my marriage, because it's
You
like,
did too. I mean,
yeah.
sometimes you just got to ask, as crazy as things sound. I mean, what do you got to lose?
Yeah, sometimes I think God's up there just like, oh, great, I've been waiting for you to ask.
Yeah.
Like, I just need you to, when you're ready to trust me, I'm happy to lead you. But he wants us to make that choice.
Yeah, I kind of think of us as parents. Our kids are making all these mistakes. Like, when are they going to ask me for help? Especially when they get to
Hmm.
be young adults or something. We see them making all these mistakes. Like, I really want to just ask for my advice, and finally they do.
Right. And you know that you can't force it. You kind of have to let them take the lead in their own life. I'm like, my kids are 8 and 6 and 4. And it's already, even when they're little, I'm like amazed, there's so many places I want to intervene. And the more I do, like, the worse it is. I have to give them some freedom. And I'm like, oh, that's what my spiritual life is like. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is really interesting. And I think sort of what makes us us is um, choosing between the negative thoughts and the positive thoughts, and sort of learning, being able to be humble enough to learn from our mistakes when we make the wrong choice, and saying, oh, you know what, that felt, when you touch a hot stove, you're like, well, that was terrible, I don't think I'll do that again. But it's harder to do that sometimes mentally.
Yeah.
you know when the hot stove is a mental pain, I think we have a harder time learning from that sometimes, and we can really get ourselves in situations where our rock bottom is pretty low. So, but hopefully eventually we learn. I think that's what we're here to do.
And there is guidance there to help.
Yeah.
There really is. And after we got together, it was a few months later, I was like, wait a minute. I think we went to the same high school. Didn't you go to the Warren High School? He said, yeah. I said, I had the biggest crush on you when I was 16. And then I got remembering, I was like, okay, this is crazy. Because this before I was really trusting these instincts and things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, wait a minute. I remember the first time I saw you. Before I walked in the cafeteria and saw him, I was out in the smoking area. And I was the type teenager. I was rebellious, and I would drink anything anybody passed me, and I would pass me a joint, sit here in the smoking area. I didn't care, whatever. And this kind of inner voice just said, "Why don't you go in and have a hot meal? Do something good for yourself instead of hurting yourself for a change." Never heard anything like that before, and didn't really let it come to my conscience that something's talking to me here. Just kind of like flowed with it. So I think I will do that. And so just as I went in to get that hot meal through those doors, this guy caught my eye, and he wasn't my type. If you think of Happy Days,
Mm-hmm.
I like the Fonz, and he was more the Potsy.
Yeah.
But he just, something just drew me to looking at him. And then I heard the voice again, and it said, "This is what goodness looks like." That I wasn't to approach him, that I would be a bad influence on him, that it
Oh,
wasn't
wow.
time. And I'd never heard these things, and I wasn't like, oh my God, I'm hearing things. It was so calming and natural. Like, it was almost like your own thoughts, but this wasn't me at 16 talking like this and talking to myself.
Right.
And so I just kind of like went with the flow, got my tray, and sat down, continued to watch him. And I noticed these guys coming in the cafeteria, and because that's where we ate our lunch, was a cafeteria, this cafeteria, of course. Um, and but all these guys kept coming up, and they'd talk to him, shake his hand, pat him on the shoulder, and he would listen and he would laugh. And I'm like, wow, he's such a good friend to everybody. It's like everybody was coming to tell him these stories, and he was just so open and like, wow. And oh, wait a minute, I know who he is. I've seen him around. He's this jock. He's president of Future Farmers of America. He's in wrestling. He's in football. He's in all these things. Wow, his family would hate me. I'm this problem child, you know. And so I just don't approach. And then not long after that, I found out we were going to move again at the end of the school year. And I saw him again, and I started thinking about him. And something told me that I was to go become a better person, that someday we would be together again.
Wow.
And then 20 years later, then that blue spirit comes and yells at me. And then I realized, I made the connection, that this was this guy with a girl, two girls live right down that road, right where I
Yeah.
heard this. And then to remember that 16, this was said to me. And so I was really scratching my head, and I just let it go, 25 years ago, because that makes no sense. Today I'm like, thank you, God.
Yeah. Did he remember you?
Yeah, I was this flat chested, really skinny, wild child. And he was
Hmm.
a good boy. He was a farm boy. He had his head on straight. He was nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
He liked the big boob cheerleaders. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it all worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's so cool. I think that happens a lot. I mean, not specifically because that's unique to you, but just these instincts and these influences, I think they're a lot more powerful than we realize. That there really is someone there with us and leading us, and it's a good thing. We're talking about all the good spirits. Should we talk about the bad ones a
Go
little bit?
ahead.
Okay. Well, so this is another Swedenborg passage, and this is from Secrets of Heaven. So that's like his epic long book where he goes through Bible passages in um Genesis and I think Exodus, and like tells you the meaning of everything. So, but then sometimes he shares like experiences in there too. So, in this is number 1511, and he writes, "Much experience has taught me to recognize, and to recognize as clearly as I recognize anything, that spirits who are caught up in falsity influence our thinking and thoroughly convince us that falsity is true. We cannot see it any other way, and this results from their aura. Demons, too, who are immersed in evil, influence our will in this way and cause evil to seem utterly good. We cannot feel it any other way, and this again results from their aura. I have had 1,000 opportunities to perceive clearly the influence of each group, to tell who it came from, how angels working for the Lord removed the effects, and many other details besides, which cannot well be listed individually. From this, I could see two things with such certainty that nothing has ever seemed more certain to me. One is where the falsity and evil in us come from. The other is the fact that false assumptions and the desire for evil give rise to these auras that stay with us after physical life has ended and that display themselves so openly. So he talks about how actually none of the evil and falsity in us is ours. It's all just sort of sifted through, you know? And it doesn't become ours unless we latch on to it and run with it. So we have to actually make it our own with some affection. We have to be like, oh, I really like hurting people, or I really like lying and stealing, or, you know, we have to like, you know, if we think about it, we're not responsible for those thoughts. But if we act on it and we, you know, we don't learn from that, and we keep, the more we do that, the more we're sort of owning it and making it our own. But it's also true that the good within us isn't really ours, that we're, you know, we're sort of like the Bible talks about being vessels, right? So it's like the good is there and we can tap into it and we can use it and we can make it our own the same way. But either way, we're sort of, I think what makes us us is sort of the choices, the way we choose and the influence we choose to have in the physical world. So
It's like
they're
choose your
like,
friends wisely.
yeah. And also it's okay to make mistakes because, you know, you're loved and we're all going to mess up. And I think the present moment is really crucial, that every moment we're in is a new opportunity. So we are not, you know, we are not our worst selves. You know, there's like these scenes in movies where they're always like, you know, they're like falling in love. And then one of the characters is like, but you don't know who I really am. Like, you don't know my past. And they have this really dramatic thing about,
Mm-hmm.
and it's always this sense of like who you really are is the worst things you've ever done. That's who you really are. And you're hiding it from everybody. But that's not true. That's no more a part of you than the best things you've ever done. Right. And we've all done good and bad things. So in every moment we get to choose, do I want to be that person that did that thing? Or do I want to be the person that did that really good thing? You know, which feels good and which feels right. And we
And
get to go with
what
that.
a crossroads for both people in that scenario you just said, when, you know, in the movies when someone comes and says, but you don't know my past. For the person saying that, they're really showing their evil they've kept hidden and kind of
Mm-hmm.
producing it in front of you. Say you're this angel person who tries to do good, and or otherwise they wouldn't be saying this to you. And so they're at this crossroads like, are you going to change me? Are you going to help me? Are you going to come do these bad things with me? And then for the good person, it's a crossroads for them because do I entertain this? Do I step over in the dark side and
Right.
play with fire? You know, or
Right.
we could help people in those moments, or we get the heck out of there. You know, it's
Right. How do you, like, somebody's being really vulnerable? How do you handle that vulnerability? Do you say, oh, that is who you are? I don't want a part of that. Or that's who I am too. Let's both do those terrible things. Or, okay, you did those things. That's okay. Who do you want to be now? Right. How do we make that happen together? And I think the thing about mental illness, or, you know, anxiety and depression are one level of it that I think are fairly common, you know, in today's world. I don't know many people who haven't experienced those on some level. Um, but when you sort of get to the point where we're in a psychotic state where you're sort of, it's very difficult to discern between physical reality and what's going on in your brain. I think in a way we all have that experience. Like we all have those voices that say good and bad things. Like, or like, for example, somebody, you know, you're like in the kitchen and you're going to chop an onion and you're picking up the knife and you have this thought, why don't I just cut myself? And you're like, what? Why would I do that? You know, like it just comes, these horrible
yeah.
thoughts come out of nowhere. Like
Who
we've
are
all had
you?
those moments of like, oh, what is wrong with me that I just thought that? But you didn't think it, right? that popped up from a negative spirit. That's sort of like, hey, worth a try, you know? And I think with okay, so I'm gonna talk about psychotic illness, but I should say that I haven't personally experienced this, and I am also not a doctor at any level. So this is not
Caffeine
medical
makes
advice.
me feel mentally ill. So I get to taste it a little bit. When
Right.
I forget and I drink coffee, and my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh, this must be what mental illness feels like.
Yeah.
I can't get a freaking grip here.
I think that's probably what it's like. You're just sort of like, where's reality? I mean, I feel like depression can do that, where you're kind of like, oh, this is my life forever. I'll never be happy again. I'm just going to be miserable forever. And you
You
forget,
spiral down.
yeah, like you're stuck. It's that
You gotta
feeling of being
crawl
really
back up.
stuck.
Get the heck out of that. Yeah.
With schizophrenics. Okay, so there's this guy, I have this book here, right? As backwards, I guess. The Presence of Other Worlds by Wilson VanDusen. And he was a psychologist who found Emanuel Swedenborg's writings and noticed a lot of similarities in Swedenborg's descriptions of evil spirits to what he was seeing in his psychotic patients, and
Interesting.
started to notice patterns in the hallucinations. And there's another psychologist named Jerry Marzinski, who's been on our show, who continued that work. And we have a few episodes about that. They're really interesting. So um,
What's those episodes called? Do you remember? Or the
one is
name?
how to deal with evil spirits.
Okay.
And then I can send them to you too if you want.
Okay.
Another is, do spirits play a role in addiction?
Um,
And the lies evil spirits tell us. I think those are the big three
okay.
with Jerry. And he's really had some interesting experiences. So Van Dusen started he started kind of noticing which patients could distinguish between reality and their hallucinations. Like the more lucid ones kind of knew that what they were seeing, no one else was seeing, that it was unique to them. But they tended to take offense to the term hallucination because to them it was very real. And in talking with people, he started noticing that the hallucinations would respond very similarly to certain stimuli in multiple patients who didn't know each other, who had no connection. So he was like, let's see. Um, so he could, sorry, there's so much in here. I just was like, I've highlighted way too much. I won't read it all, I promise. So he noticed that, like, he calls them lower order and higher order. So the higher order is like the angelic spirits, like the the pleasant ones that we were talking about, that are sort of authoritative and firm without being frightening. They leave you feeling peaceful or certain, you know. And the lower orders are the ones that make you, you know, that'll tell you to, like, oh, stab yourself, go ahead, and say kind of insane things. And if you're mentally ill and you're experiencing it psychotically, then these become even more profound and intense than how most people would experience them. So he says, on several occasions, I talked with hallucinations that the patient himself did not really understand. And he noticed that there was great consistency in what was reported independently by different patients. The differences in the experiences of schizophrenics, alcoholics, the brain damaged, and senile were not as striking as the similarities. They objected to the term hallucination and all sort of had their own terms, such as other order, the eavesdroppers, airphone, etc. And this is an interesting. So he noticed that the lower order, the vocabulary and range of ideas is very limited, but they have a persistent will to destroy. They claim to be separate identities, but reveal no detail that might help to trace them as separate individuals. Sometimes they pretend to be a friend or Jesus Christ, or, you know, this one is, One woman saw Egypt's president Gamal Abdel Nasser sitting in a chair in my office. When I respectfully passed my hand down the back of the chair, my hand was blotted out for her by the body of President Nasser. So people see all kinds of things. So sometimes he's heard it said, he's actually spoken to the hallucinations where the patients don't even really know what the conversation is. Like they'll kind of be like, okay, so what did you talk about? But they'll respond, as the hallucination. And he said the higher order voice, he says, I've heard it said by the higher order voices that the purpose of the lower order is to illuminate all of the person's weaknesses. They do that admirably and with infinite patience. To make matters worse, they hold out promises to patients and even give helpful sounding advice only to catch the patient in some weakness. All of the lower order are irreligious or anti-religious. And he said, one of my female patients was found going out the hospital gate, arguing loudly with her male voice that she didn't want to leave, but he was insisting. Like many others, this particular hallucination claimed to be Jesus Christ, but his bragging and argumentativeness rather gave him away as of the lower order. So there's like really interesting that they sort of show a sense of awareness about certain things that you wouldn't expect of something that's just fake, just a hallucination. And I can't find it, but there was a story I heard once about a patient. I think maybe this was in Jerry Marzinski's book, but he talks about a patient who had spirit or had his voices would tell him how to rob places, like where to go, what time to go, and where to find the money or whatever he was looking for. And they knew everything. Like they knew, go to this house at this time, no one will be there, find it in this drawer, and then you can go buy the drugs you want. And so he would do that, and he ended up caught and in prison. And the doctor asked him, well, if your voices knew everything, then what are you doing in prison? And he said, oh, I didn't listen to them. So he had these voices guiding him to do something really evil, but they knew things that they shouldn't know. Like a hallucination that's just random, I think wouldn't have that kind of knowledge. But at the same time, they don't have a ton of awareness. Generally, they don't have much awareness outside of the person they're in. Like their view and their experience is limited. Their knowledge is usually limited to like that person's memories, but they seem to have access to their memories and they can use it against them. And this idea that they're sort of, one of the things Swedenborg talks about in a spiritual crisis is that there's use in the evil spirits. Like the good thing about having this influence of hell that we all deal with is that it shows us what we need to work on. It shows us where we are good and where we are not good. So, if we didn't have that, we'd just be all honky dory, but like, we're not perfect, right? We all got stuff to work on. So, the benefit of a spiritual trial is that it illuminates for you what you're doing wrong. And then you have to choose whether to work on that or not. And when you do, you have the help of God, your higher power, and angels and your spirit guides, and they're going to help you fight the battles and kind of get to, I would say, a little higher state of wisdom. Like I think most of us can look back on our past and be like, I don't know, me personally, it was great to be young. Like I never had back pain, and things were easy. You could like go for a run and it wouldn't hurt. Now it hurts for days, and there's like good things about it, but the mental state, I would never go back. I just feel like what I've learned and how I've grown and the person I am now is so much better than the person I am then. And hopefully I'll only get better as I go. And so I think that is the benefit of having had spiritual experience or spiritual trials where you see the wrong and you occasionally improve it. I think there's a lot that I haven't. I'm not saying I've like, there's no plateau, right? There's always a mountain to climb. And that's not a bad thing. That's the journey. So the benefit, I suppose, of these evil spirits is that they can help us do that. So when you have mental illness, it's interesting wondering kind of how that wall was sort of broken. And Swedenborg doesn't have much to say about that. Like he talks about possession here and there, which I think probably is, this is like late 1700s. I think that's probably the term that we would use for psychotic illness, that we wouldn't talk about it that way. Um, but I've done some other research outside of Swedenborg on this, and I've learned that in certain indigenous cultures, um, people will have strong visions or hallucinations or dreams. And when they have them, the culture realizes they're the shaman. Like this like what we would call a psychotic break, they might call a spiritual awakening in some cultures. And the difference between our culture and those cultures is that we, put someone in an institution and medicate them. We don't really know how to help them, and we don't really know how to make it stop. But for them, they might say, "Oh, you have this gift, and our current shaman is going to teach you." They would have a mentor that sort of guides them through it and helps them, develop a sort of barrier to all those that constant, intense negative influence, so that they can have some grounding between this world and that world. And I suspect that because we don't really have that understanding or that training, it's very difficult for people who have that, maybe it's a spiritual sensitivity. It's like a sixth sense. And we just don't really know how to guide people through that. And then you just get too immersed. Like, I think it's important when you're in this world that you be in this world, that you not go too far this way. You don't want to be, even people who are spiritual in a good way can sort of get lost and not really be functional people. And people who are too materialistic get lost and they're not really functional people. You have to find a balance. You want to have that spiritual guide and influence, but you also are in this world for a reason, and you got to do something good while you're here. So I think we don't really have a system for helping people find that balance. I think even like like a normal, I don't normal feels wrong, but somebody who doesn't deal with psychotic illness, um, still we struggle to find balance,
Makes
you
me
know?
think of the true story movie, A Beautiful Mind.
Yeah.
He had all those voices and people, he saw them, and it makes me think of a few months ago. And I'm getting ready to say the words, I don't know what possessed me. We say that so casual. And
Yeah.
now I'm thinking maybe there's more to that phrase than we realize. But I don't know what possessed me.
Right.
But I just had this feeling, I'm just going to go ahead and say it, what I really think. And I posted on my Facebook, I don't believe in spiritual awakening. And you
Hmm.
might as well just open up the gates of hell. I never had so much turmoil. People coming at me angry because I have this podcast, and some of them have been guests, and they talked about their spiritual awakening. I wasn't even thinking about that. I was just thinking, you know what? I don't believe in that. And I thought
Hmm.
I would open a discussion. Maybe people convince me, or they can help me understand. No, they were most, some did, but some told me off and blocked me. It's just like it brought out the
Wow.
worst in everyone. Just
Yeah.
that one statement. I don't believe in spiritual awakening. They went crazy and they went off on me.
Interesting. Did it change anything for you? How do you feel about it now?
I don't believe in spiritual awakening.
Yeah.
I just don't go around saying it anymore. I
I don't
just
think
don't see
awakening,
it.
like, I think it can be a pretty casual thing. I don't think it needs to be this huge. It doesn't need to be a psychotic break. I think it can just be awakening to a new reality, like being led to the right person. That sounds like a spiritual awakening to me.
I
Like you
just
just have
felt
this
it was wrong
realization.
because I felt like people were saying they had a spiritual awakening and now they are like this guru. They have all
Yep.
the answers. Nobody can tell them anything. A lot of them, not all, some are Christian, some's not Christian. Um, Either side of the table, but it just felt wrong to me. This whole spiritual awakening um, trend,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
just,
It's like
I
how the
mean,
term is used and
and
who's
who
using
am
it.
I? I'm not God of authority of what is spiritual awakening, whether it's true or not. But I guess maybe they looked at me that way because I have a podcast, and I didn't figure on that. You know, I mean, I didn't plan on that. I didn't think they saw
Right.
me that. I didn't know they saw me that way. Like, so what if I have an opinion? Who am I? You know, you have yours.
Yeah.
Why does it make you so angry that I have this opinion? Where if anybody
Right.
else had
Yeah.
posted it, nobody would have cared. But because I said it, it was like I was dismissing all of their spiritual experiences, and I didn't intend to do that because you know I believe in their spiritual experiences. But yeah, it was just like throwing holy water on demons. I mean, they just
Hmm.
come alive in a bad way. It's like they all showed their evil forces and they all just come at me at once. It went on for a few days on my wall. Finally, I just took it off because I don't hear it anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, I probably lost about 50 friends over that.
Wow.
It was crazy.
Oh, it's interesting. Don't you just wonder, like, you know, why do people care so much what someone else believes or doesn't believe?
Yeah. And the
And
only
I
other
think,
time I had everybody get so upset with me on social media was a few years ago. I got noticed something I was reading, and it said that people that are O negative blood are more spiritual. And I thought, huh,
mm,
I wonder if they've had more near death experiences. I wonder if people with O negative are more likely to have a near death experience. So I happen to be on a not anymore. I happen to be on this big NDE Facebook group. It's like one of
mhm.
the biggest out there. And so I just posed the question, and someone said, "Well, you should make a little poll." And so I made a poll, a little survey, like, and all I had was, "Have if you've had a near death experience, what is your blood type?" That was it.
Yeah.
And so I ended up finding out that, and I started doing this more after that on my wall and other things, and I was finding it's pretty consistent. Around 85% of people that's had near death experiences are negative blood, and
Wow.
which people
Oh,
that have
negative?
negative, huh?
Yeah.
And people that have negative blood only make up like 10% of the population in the world. So for all the people
Crazy.
to be hitting 85% of the people were NDEers had negative blood. But the thing was, the people that had NDEs and were positive blood were furious with me. Not all of them, but a lot of them were. And they were just losing their minds. They assumed that I was saying that you had to have negative blood to have an NDE. And if you're positive of your blood, you were lying about your NDE. I didn't say that at all. I was just
Oh, it's
curious.
just an interesting correlation. It doesn't negate anybody else's experience. It's just kind of fascinating.
No. I thought maybe we die differently. You know, because they say, I've heard, and I don't know if it's true, that O negative blood people, it's the only ones you can't clone. And, you know, if you're O negative and, you know, most of your partners are going to be positive blood because we only make up 10% population,
Mhm.
our body acts like our baby is alien. It tries to abort it. And so
Mm,
that's why you have to have the RH factor shot,
right.
the Rogram, you know, if you're like I'm negative blood. And so with you know my husband, I had to have even if you have a miscarriage, you have to get that shot because each time you have a pregnancy, like it puts something in your blood, and so it's like
Interesting.
you have to get rid of that or something.
Yeah.
And so it's like why would nature do that? Why would you know? It's like we're aliens. And then they say you know you get read non-negative blood, they can't figure out where it come from. They don't
Yeah.
know where it came from. It's like we don't have that monkey blood. Like the positive blood is the monkey blood in our
Mhm.
bodies, and we don't have that. And so there's all these theories out there on you know on social media that were angels or were aliens and all these
Hmm.
things, and that we even respond to certain diseases differently. Some diseases we don't get
Yeah.
because we're negative blood. And you know,
That'd
in the
be
beginning of
interesting. Yeah.
COVID, they were saying that too. There was a question of people with negative bloods don't seem to be getting COVID as much or as bad. And
Wow.
so,
Are you the universal donor with O negative? Is that
yes,
what the
yeah, we're
universal donor?
universal donors. We can donate to everybody, but we can only receive negative blood.
Wow.
So,
That's definitely interesting. I have a lot of questions and no answers.
Yeah, I sent information to different people that study NDEs and asked them, can you just put this one question, what is your blood type, in your studies with near death experiences? And none of them responded to me.
Yeah, that would be interesting to know. I wonder too, like, I wish I knew more about shamans and their sort of awakening experiences. Because it would be interesting to know if there was like a genetic component to being a shaman too. If there was something physically, that gives you that sort of sixth sense that allows you to do that work. In the cultures that have the psychotic break, or I mean the awakening. Um, I don't know. I don't have the
Yeah,
answers, but it
I
is
just have
curious,
questions. I
right?
don't have answers. I just
I mean,
question.
there are like physical traits that matter, right? Things um like for example, I'm a very white person, and I have light colored eyes, and you know I drew on my eyebrows today because they're super blonde. Like, everything's white. And I think about my ancestors in Sweden and, far north places that would have lived in long winters where you wouldn't need a lot of pigment in your skin, and you would need like light eyes are better at seeing in the dark. I read that somewhere. And I was like, well, that makes sense because, and I do like I sunburn very easily. It just sort of feels like sometimes I feel like, oh, I'm really not we've been here a while. I'm really not adapted to
Well, the
this
negative
climate
blood
yet.
people come from the Mayan, my understanding, and they're light and they're redheaded and
Oh, that's true. Well, there's also a lot of really tan Swedish people too. So
yeah.
it's not a, I don't think you don't want to take it too far, but it is just kind of interesting to say, like, well, for example, if you're short, you can fit in more places. So you end up, or like people who are tall are better at basketball. So our physical traits can kind of lead us in certain directions sometimes.
My mother-in-law
So sense that your
told
blood type could be one of those.
my mother-in-law's was a nurse. She's passed now, but she never really I for a long time didn't believe in my stuff till she got closer to her death. Everything I'm talking about, she would just look at me and wait for me to shut up and talk about something else. She's one of those, she's like my, just like not into this kind of things. But one day I told her about what I just said about the negative blood, and she said, as a nurse, we always knew if somebody had red hair, they'd be more likely to have one of those experiences you're talking about.
Hmm,
So,
interesting. Yeah, there's a lot to be studied there. Swedenborg doesn't talk about any of that. So
yeah, I get you off topic.
yeah, yeah. Well, his sample size was just himself, just his own experiences, really, and then the kind of spirits he was seeing. So that is really
And it's such a
interesting, though.
shame that they, stripped him of everything, his reputation, because of his knowledge of this. Like he was like a witch or something.
He was on trial for heresy at one point. But he actually, I think the trial was, I don't know what the legal word is, but the word I'm thinking of is canceled. Like they didn't follow through on it. So he took a hit, but I think for the most part, he was sort of left alone, just sort of like, okay, Swedenborg, good luck. Um,
I mean, they took his reputation, right?
yeah. But he didn't care. At that point, I think he just wanted to get the ideas out there, and he knew. In one of his books, he has like an introduction that says, um, more or less, I forget, I'm paraphrasing, but it was more or less, people are going to think this is crazy, and I'm well aware of that. But I have seen, I have heard, and I have felt, or something like that. Where he basically is like, it's like he has this knowledge and he can't not share it. He had to. And it is interesting that, today he's really not well known. And in his day, he was really writing for scholars and academics, like people of his class. He wrote everything in Latin, which was the academic language at the time. And so it's not like he was really getting it out to a wide audience. And of course, in the he died in 1772. So in that era, the people who could read even were generally white men, European white men, and they were talking to each other. And even women were sporadically educated. You'd have to be really part of the upper class, I think, to have access. But, Swedenborg did end up, he was fairly well known, I think, in the mid 1800s. Like I remember reading that he was pretty widely read in the post Civil War era, which makes sense because this is this huge war in America, and it was like hundreds, over 100,000 people dead in what was then a small country. A lot of people looking for answers about the spiritual world and where their family is, and just sort of a devastating time. So there were a lot of people. I think there were more people aware of Swedenborg at that time than there are now. And even in Europe, like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle read Swedenborg and was a practicing spiritualist. So he was aware of that, and he's got some like big names, but he himself was never quite a big name, and then kind of went back into obscurity. I think at the turn of the century, people were maybe more materialistic, as like we're starting to manufacture things and leaving our homes and driving cars and just out in the world in a different way, and not, I don't know. It's kind of interesting. Yeah. Hopefully he gets his moment. We're trying to give him his moment.
And what got you interested in this?
I grew up in a church that used Swedenborg's writings. It's called the New Church. So that was just a church I went to every Sunday. I grew up with it. it.
Okay.
I knew other people weren't reading it, but I didn't really know how unique it was until I was an adult. Um, so we read the Bible and everything, but we would also talk about Swedenborg's interpretation of it and kind of look at both. And it was they talked a lot about reading for yourself and thinking for yourself about spiritual concepts. And it was a really, I realized that I think it was a pretty unique way to grow up Christian.
Yeah.
um and a lot of Christians would say it's not Christian, but
But
we're
you
pretty
weren't reading the
Christian.
Bible. I mean, you were just
Yeah, exactly. I
open
mean,
minded to these things.
yeah. And we always had this idea of um life continues, and that there's a spiritual world that everybody lives on, that there's really no death and just a transition. And we'd hear stories from Swedenborg's writings about seeing angels and things like that. So I have I I never really questioned that. That just made sense to me. So I'm not like eager to leave this world, but for example, when I have like an elderly relative passed, and I was happy for them because I feel confident that they are in another world, kind of living anew, reuniting with their family who passed before them. And um, there's a reason our physical bodies decay. We're not meant to stay here. So
On our 10th anniversary, my husband and I, we got remarried in the church because we got married in Vegas. And so
right.
I wanted to have a church wedding. So I got my marriage annulled. My first marriage was Catholic guy. And so I got that annulled, got my husband baptized and confirmed in the church and all that. But we were talking yesterday, so he didn't grow up in any religion. I mean, his mom says they were Christian. They went to church once in a while, but I mean, he didn't know anything. Like I say, I got him baptized, and his parents come, and they wanted to be like the ones that stood up for him. The priest said, "No, Peggy is. Like I'm not bringing the church." I think she was a little offended. But so yesterday we were talking, and I mentioned, when I had my NDE at 25, and reflecting back on that later, trying to make sense of it, I realized that growing up in church, Sunday school, and all, I always heard, and he says, I've never heard of that because you didn't grow up in church. But I always heard that we don't just die when we die, like we don't go to heaven when we die, that we all wait till the end of the world. Like
Mm.
we're all in these graves until the end of the world when Jesus comes, second coming, and then we all go at once. And I always thought that sounded weird, but that's what they preached. And I said, and I realized that's not how it happens, because I went and I was in heaven right then. And
Hmm.
I've heard so many NDEs and stuff over the years, and they didn't wait obviously till we were all gone, or nobody would have an NDE. If that was true, none of us would be having near death experiences if we all
Right.
had to wait till we were all gone. And it's just so strange to be sitting here talking to him and realize he didn't have any Christian upbringing. He had no preconceived ideas about anything. But yeah, so,
Yeah.
and I think some people don't believe in NDEs because of that fact. They believe that we all go together in the end.
Yeah. It's a scary thought, honestly. And I mean, to me, it's sort of like, well, if it scares you, then it's probably not a heavenly thought. So think about that, right?
Right.
But Swedenborg, with his belief in an inner meaning, he doesn't believe in that at all. That you might go to the world of spirits, which is sort of like a purgatory, but even purgatory is, I think, kind of a negative association. Like the world of spirits is kind of the middle place where you kind of go and you might sort through some stuff before you're ready to move on to heaven and hell, or hell, depending on what you love and who you are. Um, so like if you love yourself and care nothing for others, then hell is the right fit for you. But if you care about others, you want to be a good person, you might have a few kinks to work out, but heaven's going to be the place for you. Um, so it's a very different idea. Like he believed the last judgment, everything in Revelation was symbolic of a spiritual transformation um, that took place in heaven. And for us, basically hearkened the an age where we can have um more of a direct relationship with God than before. So we have a couple episodes about that too. That's if you're interested in that idea of the inner meaning of Swedenborg's take on it all. We have an episode called Last Judgment, and we have an episode called, is it called The End of the World? Oh, End Times and Jesus Christ. That's what it's called.
Okay.
So, he really believed that that stuff it's not meant to be taken literally. So what you experienced is real. That's how it is. And of course, Swedenborg wrote that children go straight to heaven. Like they don't have any baggage or demons, and if they do, it's from someone else. It's not, they're too young to own that. We talked about like owning the bad things by loving them and like doing them on purpose. Like you can't really consciously do that when you're a child. So
Somebody had a near death experience the other day. He was 8 when he had his NDE from, I think, appendix rupture. And he was in this hellish thing, and these kids was tormenting him. He says, a lot like Howard Storm's story. And I'm
mhm.
thinking, 8 years old? Why would 8-year-old go to hell? And then he explained later he was a bad kid. He just was not a good kid at
Yeah.
all. So I don't know.
Well, and probably the kids he saw weren't actual kids. They were, maybe they were that way for some reason. There's some, because he was a kid and that was made sense to his spirit. I don't know, but I think even as a bad kid, like you would have a hellish experience, but you wouldn't stay in hell. Like, did the experience shift where he
Yes.
ended up in?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's probably. I mean, my guess, of course, I didn't have the experience. I don't really have the authority to say this, but my guess would be that that was showing him his state of mind. Kind of the mindset he was living in.
Makes me wonder, like things you were talking about, the evil spirits that come in, is if maybe people say this is purgatory, and I maybe think about that earlier too. Some of the things you were talking about, the evil spirits and the good spirits, like, gosh, is
Maybe it
this
is.
purgatory after all? But it made me think that, and also too with Howard Storm's story, when they first died, spirits approached them. And I've heard this a few other times when people had hellish ones in the beginning, um, and some can come off as like a nice person at first. I remember somebody saying that at first these people come to him and they're bad and they seem kind of nice. I think it was Howard Storms, and then he went off with them, and then they ended this whole hell experience. So it makes me wonder if there's this in between all these levels. Like me at the drowning, I was all out of body. I didn't go to heaven. There was these voices coming in that we're talking about was as clear as day. There was no muddle like we have here. They
Yeah.
were all very clear. Like I say, open up that vision and show me this, like, oh, I'm dead. And then later I got actual voices coming in. Like one said, children are sent here to be loved. That is why God sends them here. And right before that, I was given a knowing my family didn't love me. So when I was told audibly that, I'm like, wait a minute. You just showed me my family don't love me. Now you're telling me children are sent here to be loved, but I'm not loved, and this isn't right. And so there was all that communication that's muddled here. There was absolutely no muddle. It was like full tuned radio.
Yeah.
And so when we come back as NDEers, I think that tuning just like goes in and out all the time. It could be quiet for a long time, and then it might be on loud volume, like that spirit coming in. There's a guy down that road that needs you. And other times it's so exact, but yet it's like, do I trust that? Do I act on that? And it's hard. It's like somebody's always messing with that tuning, and we're not in control of it.
Right. Yeah. I think we can get control a little bit over time,
Yeah, I do too. It
like
takes
sort of through
practice
through
and trust.
preferences. Exactly, exactly. I feel like, like in yoga, they talk about having a spiritual practice. And I always thought that was so weird. And now I feel like I get it. Like you really are always practicing, but you do get better at kind of setting your boundaries, understanding your preferences, knowing the consequences, you know? Like, yeah, I can eat that, but
And I think if I think
I'll
of
cook later.
the good voices and the bad is like AM and FM. If you
Mm-hmm.
stay in AM, if you really, really try to live a good life and you really try to stay good thoughts, and not that you're always positive, I'm not saying that at all, but being true to yourself and trying to live a good life, I feel like you're on this AM. And then if the FM starts to come in, you're like, you recognize it right away, get that out of here.
Mm-hmm.
um, or or some people just completely live in FM, and
Yeah.
anything that's AM, they're going to respond with anger and
Right.
fear, and so yeah, I don't know, right and
Yeah.
left, I don't know.
I do think there's probably people that their dials are just kind of, I don't want to say broken because that feels judgy, but like there's something different where they have just a different, there's research into the brain chemistry that causes things like depression. And I think there's probably physical causes as well as mental and spiritual. Like everything is holistic, right? You're never just a body, right? You're a body who eats, and what did you eat? You're a body who breathes, and where did you breathe today? And you're also a mind, and like what did you consume mentally? What show did you watch? What person did you talk to? Like what was the energy around you? And you're also a spirit. So like what's coming in that way, and how is that influenced by your physical environment and your mental environment? Like all of those things are constantly interacting and influencing us. Like the other day, I feel like I was in a really bad mood and I was sort of grumpy. And it took me a while to realize that like my pants were too tight. And I was just like angry all day because my pants were uncomfortable. And
I'll do that.
I was just sort of like, what is going on with me? And then I changed my pants and I was like, oh, I feel like a new person, and it's like the smallest little thing
Yeah.
can impact you, spiritually and mentally and physically. And, I know now that I find it hard to be a good person when my pants are too tight. I just need to know that
Yeah.
and get different pants. So it's like it can be little things. So how does that affect you in terms of your spiritual life, right? And also like I feel, you might feel physically bad if you eat a certain food, or like if I like true crime. If I watch a lot of true crime, I don't sleep. I like get up with every noise, and
Yeah.
then I'm like really off the next day. And so I have to like really limit my true crime intake. And, these are things that I've like learned over time about, okay, well, tomorrow's a weekend, so I can watch true crime and be up all night and then sleep in. But if I
It's
have
just
work the next day, it's like, no way.
Christian
Um,
music makes me just flip right into my good side automatically. So I finally wisened up and I put a radio in my kitchen and it's on there constantly. I never turn it off. So every time I walk in my kitchen, I hear it immediately. I don't have
yeah,
to make a choice. So I turn on TV and I listen to this or that, or, it's on. It's like,
yeah.
there's your happy place. Go.
Yeah, I think we learn how to make better choices, but we also learn how to set ourselves up for a win, right? We get better at knowing what's the environment I'm going to succeed in and allowing ourselves to have that. Oh, one other thing I wanted to tell you, Peggy, about um something Wilson VanDusen noticed about the psychotic patients is that when they start hearing these voices, one of the first things the voices will try to do is isolate you. They'll try to make you feel different and they'll try to make you feel like you can't be near other people and other people don't understand you or other people are dangerous. Like um I knew a schizophrenic person who thought, a lot of people were trying to kill her. Like she thought everybody was plotting against her. And what a clever way for these voices to get you alone. Because when they get you alone, they can harass you constantly with no distractions. And you see that energetically in these people who are so isolated and alone and they're just trapped in this world. And he said, though he hadn't found a cure necessarily for this, one thing that seemed to help was community service to others. So the more a person having psychotic experiences could find the energy and the time to do something for others, it really seemed to help with the voices and spirituality as well. But they would try to attack a person's religious practices. So it's a combination. It's like even when you're in a state like that, still finding ways to set yourself up for some success, giving yourself good food, getting enough sleep, having a spiritual practice, and also having, making yourself engage with others in a positive way, even if you have these voices and these spirits telling you not to. That's only to their advantage. It's not to yours, you know,
And
and you have to be able to separate from those. So there are, I think, small ways we can kind of cope or perhaps lessen the pain, and not to mention, therapy and whatever medications are necessary for it's different for everybody, but
I told my kids my grandchildren are now becoming teenagers, a lot of them, and I said, along with their sports and their activities they're into, I said, get them in community service, whether it's volunteering in a nursing home, hospital, do something where they're learning to give back to others. Because I think we're raising so many kids that are just selfish. By the time they graduate high school, all they're thinking about is themselves and nobody else. And I took myself to be a candy striper when I was 14. I went to the nursing home. I saw a friend that was doing it. Like, I want to do that. And I just started, those things. And so I would just kind of let and I took my adopted kids to a nursing home and had them volunteering for a while. And they really flourished. And something you
Mhm.
said a while ago made me think about my adopted kids too, because, we had them in the Catholic Church. I mean, we would pray together and they would go to these church retreats and they were just so angelic. And then we just got away from church and they got in with boys and I didn't recognize them anymore. And then when they turned 18, they went back to the biological families who were on drugs, alcoholics, and, telling them, oh, don't live like her, live like me. Two of them got on heroin because their biological mom got
Oh,
them on
Lord.
heroin, and they ended up losing their children. Two of my adopted daughters lost their kids. And and they just took a bad path. Our youngest adopted son, him and his wife are now on meth, and we're going to take in their children at 4 and 6, and they're not showing up to visits. They're not going to court hearings. I mean, like they've just like went the other way, and that's
Mhm.
where they're comfortable. That's where they're going to stay. And I told my husband, first thing we're going to do is start getting back into church and getting those kids in Sunday school, and we're going to
Yeah.
stay there, and we're not going to get off of that because it's important. It matters what you
Yeah.
feed your soul.
Yeah. And then you have those memories too of how good it felt to help someone else and how good it felt to have a spiritual experience and or as in church and to have those safe spaces. So whatever they encounter, they are going to have those memories and that foundation so that when they're ready, they can come back to that. Hopefully your other children find their way back.
Yeah. And because, we're 61, taking on 4 and 6 year olds, we're not going to always be here. And so
Right.
we're just going to try to pack everything we can as long as we're here
Mhm.
so they have something to fall back on. So,
I think it's true too. Like when the more you have that experience, the more you start to crave the good things. You start to find the other things intolerable. Um, and that's what I hope for my kids. Uh, but
I
that
was
is
really lost at
hard.
17. I had gotten to be just this bad kid, this angry kid. And we moved around a lot. Parents was divorced and I had
Yeah.
experienced a lot of bad things in my life. And so I thought my summer before going to senior year, I thought, you got to get your act together. I knew at 18 in February when I turned 18, I would be kicked out. I would have no help from no one. What am I going to do? It's playtime's over. I got to get this shit together. And so I started walking around the woods and I just started talking to God. And I found this hill and I climbed to the top and I just started praying. And I had a spiritual experience. I don't call them spiritual awakening. Um, Spiritual experience, which I just felt God around me, and this wind and my hair blowing, and I was up top of this hill, and I realized years later, I realized that being at top of that hill and praying, I was getting a connection where I was at 5 years old, drowning, hovering over the pond. I was at like this levitation place,
Mhm.
and I was at this connected to God place where and this voice come in and said that this is what you need to do. You need to get a job. You need to save your money. You need to buy a car. You need to get over that old boyfriend that I was suicidal over for over a year. And you need to do this and this and this to get your shit together. Basically, not in those
Mhm.
words.
Yeah.
And I did. I followed all those steps and I got it together. So, and then at 18, just after I graduated, I was pregnant, and I realized how I needed to get fully back to the Christian girl I used to be, because this is motherhood now and it changes you. At least
Mhm.
it should, I think. And
Mhm.
I didn't want to hang out. I didn't hang out with my old friends. I stopped the smoking pot and the drinking, all those cigarettes. I stopped because this was so important. I
Mhm.
realized what it was like to be growing up as a child that didn't have the mother they should, the father they should, the siblings or the surroundings, and I wanted to give 1,000%. And that's, we have a choice, because a lot of people don't make those choices. Oh well, so what?
Yeah.
I got a kid on my hip. I'll be still drinking with this hand and doing whatever drugs and too. My little grandchildren, 4 and 6, mommy was passed out on meth, and they opened the door and went down the street as the intersection headed McDonald's. You know, and then we have tried and tried with them everything possible to get them back over on the other side, and it's
Yeah.
lost cause now. So now
They got to make that. Yeah. You can't choose it for
yeah,
them.
they
That's
want
the
to open
worst
the
part.
door now so we can talk to
Right.
them and say, get to those
Where
visits, get to those hearings.
do you still get to see the grandkids? Your
Right now they're
grandkids?
in foster care, and how we found out about this, we had seen the kids, and we used to take them with us on weekends and stuff. In summer, we figured we'd have them all summer as we usually do, and but we had been reporting them to children's services, and they got mad at us every time they get mad at us for reporting. We don't get to see them, and so we in mid-July we knocked on the door, and the little boy come to the door. Mommy didn't come to the door; she was in bedroom, but she was saying no. He said, "I said, well, why can't we take you?" He says, "Mommy says you won't bring us back." You know, she was afraid that we wouldn't bring him back, because I said, "We'll
The,
always
the
bring you
foster
back."
mom or his mom?
His mom,
Yeah.
told us, said no, because they won't bring him back. She was afraid we was going to take him because we would call CPS on her. And
Yeah.
so, and he was so sad. You could tell he just kept staring at his grandpa. You could tell he just wanted to run and leap in his arms and go with it so bad. And he just stood there at the door. He's been such a good little boy. And he's like, I can't go. And so as we was leaving, I look at the window and I see her little granddaughter, her little nose pressed to the window, looking so sad. And we know mommy's passed out on drugs. We've called so many times, and there's nothing we can do. And 3 weeks went by, and we got a letter in the mail that right after that they had got removed. And we did not even they went down McDonald. I thought to my husband, did they get down there looking for us? because I had said, well, ask mommy if we can just take you to McDonald's.
Yeah.
We just wanted to visit with the kids. And I thought, when did this happen? Did it happen that day? Did they have it in their head? They think grandma and grandpa's still down there at McDonald's waiting on them? I mean, I don't know. The mommy said they were playing with the ball. They opened the door, which they never had before. But the thing was, is I had a vision. We left there. He said, no, we can't go. And little granddaughter's nose pressed the window looking at us. We got in her truck and we drove around the hill, turn around, come down the hill. And I told my husband to stop the truck. I said, I see it right now as clear as day. I saw what was going to happen. I didn't know when it was going to happen. I said, they're going to come out that door and they're going to head down that street to McDonald's. And I said, I just pray to God they don't get hit by a car. Something,
Mm-hmm.
I could see it happening. And there's nothing I could do to stop it. And then 3 weeks later, we get the letter. And then I go to talk. They couldn't tell us how they got removed. But I went and talked to my daughter-in-law, and she says that's what happened. But they didn't even remove then. They gave her another chance. And then 2 weeks later, they removed. But I'm just thankful they're okay, and I'm done with trying to help them, and we're going to go forward. So
Good. Well, it sounds like the kids are probably in a safer situation, and that's a really,
we're thanking God they're in foster care
yeah.
because we know they're safe right now. We have to go through home study process to bring them home.
Yeah.
So I did foster care for years and years. We just haven't had a home study process in years. So we're
Yeah.
just waiting for the caseworker to get out of training and out of court, and
Right.
time to get down here and do it. Got to go on their schedule. So
Well, good luck with all of that. It's
thank you.
tough with all the bureaucrocy of it, but I'm
But
glad that
but kind of
there's a
like what
path
we're.
where you
I'm sorry.
get to still. I'm just happy you get to still see them, and there's a way to do that and make that happen.
But
That's
you sit here
hard.
talking about these things. I just we want people to just get on the right side.
Yeah.
To stop listening to those bad voices or those addictions, because when they get those addictions, and
Yeah.
it's like they don't have a chance against those voices anymore.
If you end up watching our episode about addiction, um, do spirits play a role in addiction? I think it was in there that at one point Curtis had a list. Curtis is the host of the show, and he's talking about the spirits try to lead people to meth, spice, and heroin. Those are like the top three that they kind of want to influence people. I forget exactly what the list was, but they're like powerful drugs that really um, take people away from reality. And I know physically, um, meth, I think, affects your dopamine levels in a way that it actually takes your brain like 2 years to sort of rebuild that dopamine. So that's part of what makes meth addiction so hard, is that you sort of lose the physical ability to be happy for a while, and you have to give your body time to heal that. And it's really tough. So, but it's not impossible. People overcome. There's really powerful forces that want to help us. I think really, like, when we are ready to find that help, it's there. And
Yeah. I mean,
there's
their
so
mommy
much
looks
mercy,
their
you
mommy
know?
looks like a zombie.
Yeah.
We went down and talked to her, like, Brittany, what happened? Why did kids get removed? She started telling me when she first came to the door, she looked like a zombie, and I was actually afraid of her. She's probably like 90 pounds, but I was actually afraid just because of the look on her face.
Yeah.
And then she sat down, and I said, what is wrong? She said, I'm scared. I said, scared to talk to me? Because she sees me. I worked at children's services for years. She sees me as children's services, and but she gave her kids to children's services. She actually realized what her problem was, and she took them to McDonald's herself and said, come get them. So I can't take care of them.
Wow.
And I said, so what you got to do? She got to go detox. I said, let's go. Let me take you. No. No.
She had a lucid moment. That's a good sign.
Yeah.
It's so hard because you don't want to give up, but you kind of can't be directly involved, right? You just
Right.
gotta wait. But I think you can, sometimes I think in these situations we can help people just by continuing to love them, the good person that's inside, and being ready to show up when they're ready to be that person again.
She said, we had a hearing today. She said, but we didn't go. I said, you didn't go? Here's my phone. Here's the caseworker. Call. Explain why you didn't go. You cannot just not show up for court hearings on your kids.
Mm-hmm.
And she told me they've been going to the visits. Found out she hasn't been going to the visits. She lied to me. So I just feel
Yeah.
like they're gone, you know? Like my son and her, they're gone. Like they're out in that land of the demons, is the way it feels to me.
Right. When you think about possession, I think in a lot of ways, addiction is modern possession. That's what it is. And they're not the people you love. They're something else. The people you love are in there, but they're, they can't come out until the addiction is dealt with. But
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. So that, that stuff is very real.
yeah. And I just, my advice to anybody listen, don't even try it.
Right.
Don't even
Right.
do that.
Well, and like thinking about your atmosphere, right? I mean, going and being in a place like it's such a shame they went back. They're probably seeking some kind of relationship with birth parents, and it's just easy, to sort of make the wrong choice when you're vulnerable. You have to keep yourself out of those situations.
Yeah. I mean, my
Yeah.
adopted girls, every one of them are just beautiful. And to see them a few years later, after, they turned 18, went start hanging out with adoptive or their biological mother, their cheeks, they look like aliens. They're so sunk in.
Yeah.
And they lost their beauty. And then they lost their children. I mean, one had two girls. One took, she lost hers. The baby was, second child was born. And she had a biracial child. And then they took her at birth. And then they took her other little girls, four.
Mhm.
And then the other daughter, she had already lost hers. She had three little girls. And she lost them. Of course, they called me when we take them. And but there was other family that could take them. And
Yeah.
so I said, I've done it my whole life, and they're going to blame me. If I have them, they'll blame me. They see me
Right.
as the cops, as children's services. They're not, and they're always going to say it was her fault. She took my kids, and let the other family take them. And
Yeah.
we just weren't in a position.
Yeah.
I wasn't in a position emotionally after everything I went through with our adopted kids to deal with the system. But with
Yeah.
these two, I'm like, okay, we just retired,
Right.
and and it's actually good timing. So.
Good.
So, sorry, I'll probably talk about my kids now for a
Oh,
minute.
it's totally fine.
So,
I mean, it's relevant, really. We were talking about evil spirits and their influence and addiction and all those things, like the ways they show up. I think they they're powerful and they're not powerful. They can't actually do anything to us, but they really can convince us to do things to ourselves. And I think if we don't, it would be nice. I would imagine that if you're in that kind of addiction, like when you think about Alcoholics Anonymous, being able to say, like, I'm powerless over this, to be able to call it a disease and separate yourself from it. Like, I'm not an alcoholic. Like, this isn't because I'm this bad person. This is because I have this disease, I have this vulnerability. And being able to see that as sort of separate from who you are, I think that's really helpful.
yeah,
Like when Swedenborg talks about all the evil it's not from us.
yeah,
It's
and
just out
but the
there.
thing is I'm not an alcoholic because I
Right.
chose to never take it that far. Like my ex, he started
Exactly.
drinking, and I watched him become an alcoholic, and he kept wanting me to go to the bars with him and drink with him. I was like, no, we have foster children, we have children.
Yeah.
And I see how it would change him. And a sober person watching somebody drink really makes you become more of a sober person because it's
Yeah.
like, ew,
Right.
don't even do that here. I don't
Yeah.
even see it. And so that
Right.
grew a big divide, because he's doing it more and more elsewhere. And then the other women come in, and coming home at 4 in the morning comes in, and then domestic violence starts. And then, me being a threat for my life,
I mean, it's
my
hell.
kids' lives. So out here,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. That's
We
like
all have to
literally
pick our
a
sides.
hellish
Yeah,
experience. Yeah. Exactly.
yeah. It's a
Right.
battle. Pick your sides.
And sometimes, there are times when we just want to be in hell for a while. And then we create it for everyone else.
Yeah,
And hopefully we can see that what we're doing and stop, but not everybody wants to.
Yeah. I mean, and then, the adopted kids that I've seen go through this, well, then where do they end up? Then they end up suicidal. And then they end up with depression. And then they end up, so it just piles on and piles on
Exactly.
because they got to live with the choices they made.
Yeah, it's a downward spiral.
Yeah.
Right.
But the one person come on, the guest I had, and he was drowning in an ocean, and there was no hope that he was going to survive.
Yeah.
And he just gave up. God, just take me. He was done. And he heard a voice very clearly in the bottom of this ocean, not bottom of the ocean, but in the ocean, say, ask. Like, ask for help. He's like, why would I ask for help? This is a hopeless situation. And he said, ask. And he says, okay, help me. Guess what happened? A dolphin came, got underneath him, and brought him to the top of the water. A boat come along and saw him on top of this dolphin and rescued his butt.
Wow.
Ask.
Yes, that's key.
I
You
have prayed
have
at
to
times
want
that,
help and have some faith,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Even with these kids, when the mommy said no, they can't go with us, I figured that's it. We're never gonna see these kids again. And God help them, keep them safe because this is going to be awful. And so, I ask God, please, I know this is a helpless situation. I don't see any hope at all for this. And I just, pray for your miracles because I've seen them. And then I get a letter in the mail. We've removed your grandchildren. Will you take kinship care? I'm like, thank God.
Yeah.
We do have to ask.
Yeah, we
We
do.
really
Yeah,
do.
I think that's crucial. Yeah, it's a crucial part of it.
It's like you said, there's these good voices and there's these bad voices and so we're just like down here in purgatory,
Yeah.
and like when we got this battle and we got to pick what is gonna, what side you're on, and do the best with what you can and surround yourself with everything that will keep you on that side.
Mm-hmm.
And then we always have to be in contact with the other side, just like me saying I don't believe in spiritual was it awakenings. Bam,
Yeah.
here comes
Yeah.
all this. So and I'm sorry, and then you're gonna get mad at me, but you're out there running in the dark. I'm just like oh,
I was walking. Running
okay.
is too hard.
So
I would only run if there was danger. I gotta
I
save my
don't know how you feel
energy.
about concealed
Right.
carry.
Well, it was like it wasn't that dark.
Okay. My
I'm not
husband, he keeps a knife, and he has this little thing, and he just keeps a
Mhm.
knife on him at all times, everywhere we go.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Because you just don't ever know.
Yeah.
I watched a video the other day, YouTube, not YouTube, but come on my Facebook, it's Facebook Live. This lady's a cop. This young woman's a cop. And the one time she said she didn't take her gun with her, she didn't have it in her car. And she went to the store and said, I'm very conscious. I don't carry a purse over. She knows all these things. She's had this training how to be safe. And she just had her, I think, her phone and her keys. She put it with the door, put it in the back seat. And then she closed. And she knows as soon as you get in your car, you'll hit lock right now. You don't wait. You got to get it where your car will lock as soon as you get inside.
Hmm.
And she hesitated for a moment to do something with her phone. Suddenly a man's in her car. And she says the only thing that saved her is she had left her sunroof open. And somebody heard her screaming. And so he saw that other people were watching and approaching, and he took off. And she started to cry. And she's just so upset about this. And she's
Yeah.
telling women to be careful. Here she is, a cop, and she thinks
Yeah.
that she knows how to protect herself, and she does all these things. And it was just the one day, and she didn't have her gun in her car, and she just didn't click that lock as soon as she got in. And here's this guy, and she's in this situation, her, a cop, And it makes me think when I was a children's services worker, I had a lot of training in college. I took like some of the police training in my college courses before I became a social worker. And so, and I thought I was careful, but
Hmm.
one day, this old guy lives right up the road from us. Is really poor, had a dirt floor house. They never let me in the house before. Only talk outside. And I gained her trust. I had been bringing them clothing and hangers and things and to help out. And I was their favorite caseworker. And he says, well, come on in. And I thought, oh, wow, I've gained her trust. And we come in, and I realized they don't have electricity. So the only light you got coming in this is a big one-room house. There was no walls or anything. It was these windows. And it was about 4:30. It's about quitting time for me at work. And so it was all like black with this little bit of light coming in. And his grandson was standing there. And me, naturally, I love children. I speak to children as soon as I see them. And I said, I noticed this big cut on his hand looked infected. And I said, oh, what'd you do to your hand? That was the wrong thing to say. Here's people almost look like wrong turn people. I mean, and here's his wife and his daughter and this is her little boy. And here's this man, and he's picked up a hatchet off the dirt floor. And he said, he got hurt on this. And something just possessed him. I seen the change in his face. My back is against the door. And I'm thinking, you big dummy. Your back is on the door. You were taught in your training to never have your back in the door. Always stand where you have an exit. And here I am with my back against the door. And he takes a step towards me. He puts the axe right to my head. And he pulls it back like he's getting his aim. And he rears it like he's going to hit me. And I close my eyes. And I thought, I got mace in my pocket. But I don't have time to say, excuse me, let me get my mace.
Right.
Wait a minute. And my back is against the door. I close my eyes and I think of my 3 boys who were preteen at that time, right like 2 miles down the road. And it's quitting time. They're going to wonder why mom didn't come home. And I'm thinking, he's going to hit that right through my skull and kill me instantly. He's going to drag my body. He's got this junkyard in his backyard. He's going to bury me in his junkyard. And I just close my eyes and I think, you dummy, your back's against the door. And then I open my eyes and he's face to face with me. And he has the control. I don't. What he does in that next moment, either pull away or down, good or evil, which spirit's going to listen to you. And he says, looks at me in the face, and he kind of melts when he looks in my face. I think maybe he felt sorry for me. I don't know. But his face changed then. And he said, now you go back and you tell them I said never come here again. And so I'm just like really quiet. Like, is he going to change his mind? And I go out to him and he follows me. He's on my heels every step of the way to the car. And back then we didn't have the unclick, we had to use the key. And I'm unlocking my car and I get in and I'm shaking so bad. But I don't know why I brought that up. But I was just like, just to see the evil. To be in a feel like you're in a safe place, and all of a sudden, just like that girl in the car, all of a sudden you're no longer safe.
That change, that's something that people who've survived like attacks and serial killers, and they describe that's something people talk about a lot. That change in the eyes, like where suddenly there's something inhuman. It's bone chilling.
Yeah.
Was the kid okay? Did you get the kid out of there?
I have no damn idea. I mean, I come home and I called the sheriff's office and I asked them to come to my house so I could make the report, because I could not physically drive. I was shaking so bad. I was so scared. I couldn't go back out to my car. And they said, no, you got to come in. They didn't care. And so my husband come home and I asked him to take me and he wouldn't take me. So I did it the next morning. I filed the report the next morning in the director's office. They come down and we did it through that. He only got 30 days. He got 30 days in jail. He admitted he did it. He said he had a bad day at the junkyard, and which he had a junkyard in his backyard.
He's fine then.
Collected junk, and took it and tried to sell his junk and stuff. Jeez. And he got 30 days. Well, a few months later, a worker from another county called me. She said, he was bragging what he did to you. Can I ask you, if you don't mind? She says, how much time did he get? Because he come in her office with a knife and was going to kill her right in her office. And she's having the same trouble I was, that they didn't want to take it seriously. And she was saying, we need to do something where caseworkers can get the same protection as police officers. Like if you assault a police officer, you're looking at a lot of charges. But when it's us caseworkers or like firemen, I think since then they've changed it to include firemen. But still, like caseworkers, we're just out here.
Oh, they haven't protected caseworkers
I mean,
more.
you have immunity, like from lawsuits, but as far, I was attacked all other times too on the job, not as bad as that,
It's
but
a scary
it's
job.
just like we have nothing. I even had
Yeah.
sheriff's deputies try to set me up to be killed by clients like, twice, and there was nothing. I would, contacting everybody, nobody do anything. It's like your caseworker, nobody cares.
That's awful. That definitely needs to change.
So it's just like the average Joe going up here and knocking somebody's door. Did you sexually abuse your child? Did you leave these marks? I mean, you're just like in somebody's face out here, and you could be in BFE, and I have been, in these dirt roads. You're going way back. It comes to like a one lane road. You're so far back in the woods, and you're knocking on somebody's door, asking these intrusive questions. You're just sitting
By
tight,
yourself. You don't even have a partner.
huh?
I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah. And I was in
You're,
my 20s,
you're
early
dealing with
30s.
people that are hurting children. I mean, if they're willing to hurt children, what are they going to do to adults?
Yeah, I mean, law enforcement will go with you if it's after hours, but not during the day. Just because you feel scared, just because you're uncomfortable, they're not gonna go with you.
Wow, you're brave to do that.
Yeah, I don't do it anymore. I work on the pipeline, and I said if I'm gonna get killed out here, at least it's not gonna be by some creep out in the woods somewhere, and I'm
Yeah,
getting paid a whole lot more.
yeah,
I'm sorry,
yeah.
I've got off topic so much with you, and it's really been
Well, it's
really
fun talking to
interesting.
you.
You bring up a lot of thought provoking ideas.
Well, I think that's the nature of the topic that when you start thinking about the way we're, interacting with spirits, so many stories come up. I don't think there's many people who wouldn't have like, oh, this one time, even the little things where like you call someone and then they're calling you and you're like, oh my gosh, we were thinking of each other at the same time, or all these little synchronicities or small prayers answered or just oh, you know what I was thinking of? There's a book called The Gift of Fear. Have you ever read that?
I've heard of that. No, I haven't read it.
It just reminds me of that. I don't remember the author, but it's about basically trusting your instincts when it comes to fear, how it can save lives. Like, I remember a particular one story of a woman getting on an elevator and having this like starting to get on. There's just one guy in the elevator, and she had this really bad feeling about it, but she was like, "Oh no, this would be too weird if I don't get on. I don't want to be rude. I'll just get on." And then I think she survived, but she was assaulted by the guy in the elevator, and um, if she just was sort of saying like, I knew there was something off, and I should have listened. Not that she didn't deserve what happened to her or anything, but just that there is like this sense in us that I think can sometimes really kick in and give us these warnings. And if we learn to listen to that, we can really save ourselves some trouble.
I used to like to
Oh,
watch the Lifetime movies, the true stories, like The Girl in the Box. I don't know if it's Lifetime or not. Or different ones where these women, young women, were abducted, and they have these spiritual experiences where something would just say, "Go out that bathroom window and run right now." Like before she was abducted, like she had took a ride with this guy. They stopped at the gas station, the bathroom, and all of a sudden at the mirror at the bathroom, something just come to her. Get out that window. Go right now. Run. And she's like, "What? No,
yeah,
I'm fine." Well, she ended up being the girl in the box under the bed in the basement and everything. And then, a lot of those I don't think people really pay attention to, but I'll
yeah,
like pause it and I'm like, there, I tell my husband, there it is, right there. Listen, watch this, because these are true stories. And
yeah,
they have these moments where it becomes supernatural, where something is saying, "Don't make him mad. Don't say what you're getting ready to say," because he killed a girl that said that to him before.
right.
Just stay calm right now.
Mm-hmm.
And like me on the hill at before my senior year, and just that spiritual experience moment where these I asked for help, and all these things were coming in. This is what you need to do, and we can follow those things, and we can listen and pay attention. And I myself have been guilty many times. I'll hear something, it's like, no, I don't want to. I've had
Yeah,
a spirit come in and say, you need to call your friend right now and go get her and take her because her dad's dying. I'm like, I'm covered in sweat. I've been painting all day. I just want to get this painting done. Like, gosh, I don't have these crazy thoughts. Well, guess what? Her dad died, and she didn't get to see him before she died. And so It's easy, and it's a live and learn thing. This
Right.
don't come with the instructions. We
Right.
don't, Swedenborg's given to us, but not everybody's
Yeah.
under that or
He's
reading
trying.
about it. And apparently we should, because there's a lot to it. And you're so fortunate that you grew up in the church that you did, to where you have the best of both worlds. You have the Bible and you have the spirituality
Mhm.
explanations right there side by side. That's amazing.
I think it has been very helpful to me.
So,
Yeah, I think I came away from that with a real sense of trust your intuition because it's not you. It's either someone who knows better or it's someone who's trying to make you miserable. And either way, like I remember when I was in high school, I was very, very depressed and I was thinking about suicide a lot. And I never did it because I believed that I would have to deal with it in the next life. Like I never really didn't, even when at my darkest moment, I never didn't believe in God or didn't believe in an afterlife. I'd sort of more be mad at God. I know that not everybody feels that way, but for me, it was like, well, why bother? Why bother killing myself? Because I'll just have to deal with this there. And I'm glad I didn't, you know.
yeah,
Um,
we've all been there, I think, at times.
but yeah, it's been helpful to sort of have this bigger picture sometimes, to sort of have the sense of like, I'm not completely alone. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's been interesting.
And if we
So,
don't learn anything else from near death experiences, is the one thing we have to have picked up on by now is everything that is happening to us now is being recorded,
mhm.
because the life reviews, they're being shown their lives and the good that they did versus the bad that they
Yeah.
did, and they're learning lessons, or they're showing appreciation for the good things. And I love it when people will say, and I hadn't even thought of that before, I hadn't even remembered it, and it was brought out this mirror, kind of like my fishbowl was brought out and shown me something.
Hmm.
And I tell my husband, it's like, if anybody thinks I can make this stuff up, they're not realizing how dumb I am.
Yeah.
Like, there is absolutely no way that I could make up a story 25 years ago, or gosh, no, longer than that, and now it pinpoint and fit exactly to all these other things that are coming out, and the
Mhm.
evidence is coming out, and you're right. In fact, I have said, and it's a fact, I cannot lie, because I learned when I was little, I'm the worst liar ever. I could not remember. I could not make the dots match. Like, I have a sister that is a compulsive liar. My mom says she learned to lie since the day she was born, and she just lies, 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 lies. And so I would try it when I was a kid,
Yeah.
and I suck at it. Like, you could throw me up in 1 minute and catch me in a lie. Like, I suck at
Yeah.
it that bad. Like, it wouldn't even make sense. Okay, well, I went in the room and there was a bottle of tequila. Really? Well, where do you think the tequila come from? Or what did the label look like? Or I don't even know what tequila looks like. You know what I mean? You're
Yeah.
so, like, I don't know.
Right.
You got me. I'm lying. I mean, that's awful.
I relate. I turn bright red every time I lie, like very red. So it's really obvious. My face gets all hot and I'm like sweating. So I feel lucky actually
Yeah,
that I never got. You can't get good at lying when everybody knows you're lying.
yeah. And
There's
I
just
have this
trouble.
impulsive need to confess. Like,
Hmm.
I just have to confess. Like, okay, I can't do it. Here's the confession. I'd
I
rather
can't
deal
live
with the
with this.
consequences.
Yeah,
So,
that's
well,
good.
I'll let you go. I didn't mean to take up your whole morning. It's just been really interesting.
Oh, I really enjoyed talking to you, Peggy. This has been great.
All right.
Yeah, it's
Thank
really
you.
fun to hear about your experiences.
Thank you. All right. Bye
Yeah.
bye.
Thanks for putting it out there.
Uh-huh.
Good. It's helping people.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you.